Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon with another BetterHealth podcast. I am absolutely thrilled to be here today with three incredible people, Jenny Fernandez, Nancy Dadia, and Kendal Whitlock. And I think that their conversation today is especially meaningful because their focus and frankly, Nancy's and Kendal's life work in diversity, equity, and inclusion is very much in sync with a terrific announcement that I want to make today, which is that Endeavor Venture Funds and Venture Studio is formally partnering with Techstars New York City, powered by JP Morgan. The focus of Techstars New York City is driven by its terrific managing director, Gary Stewart, who is bringing together a diverse group of CEO entrepreneur founders focused in on many different areas. Healthcare is one of them. Approximately 1/3 of the companies in the Techstars universe are healthcare, but sitting alongside that are incredible founders from diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures, many different countries that are representing an important change in the world of entrepreneurship. And Endeavor is extremely proud to have a geographic footprint in the New York City office. Jenny Fernandez is now going to play a critical role in leadership for this diverse community as an executive in residence in leadership. And I am really humbled and proud to be the new senior executive investor in residence, bringing together some understanding for the CEO founders about what investors want, how to speak to them, how to approach partnering, collaboration, networking, and how most importantly to bring value to first industry and then patients. So without further ado, I'm really going to turn this over to Jenny Fernandez. After, of course, I thank everyone for joining today. It's with great pleasure that I announce that our 1.17 million views has now continued to accelerate. We will be hosting our podcasts in iconic venues like the New York Stock Exchange over the next several weeks and months as part of a new series because all of you really have supported this venture and laid out, I think, a clear message that there is a real powerful need for an open source platform in healthcare. And as part of that, I think it's really important to recognize many of the people who continuously show support. So, Martin, thank you so much for dialing in from Norway. Christoph from Madrid, thank you so much. Joachim from Finland, you're just constantly chiming in with great comments. Tom from Belfast, thank you so much. And everybody else who signed up and registered today, I encourage everyone to please ask our incredible panelists questions. I encourage everyone to please let us know where you're logging in from and put your email in. If we can't get to your question today, we will send you an email response. So I'm going to turn this over to Jenny Fernandez, who really, she'll tell you about herself, but she's humble. So I'm going to give her a little bit of a push. She really is a superstar, and she has an incredible background from Kellogg with an MBA from that incredible university. And she's a professor at Columbia and a professor at NYU and a real advocate for women and diverse leaders. So Jenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Gershon. I'm really excited to be the guest moderator today, which is a great timing. It's really in honor of yesterday, when we celebrated People's Indigenous Day. And frankly, again, congratulations to Dr. Gershon and Endeavor for the great partnership with Techstars, powered by JP Morgan. It was fantastic to be at the offices yesterday when the new cohort of young entrepreneurs from emerging companies were basically getting started in their 13-week journey here in New York City, really empowering these diverse and female CEO founders to take their companies to the next level. And as Dr. Gershon mentioned, glad to be part of the the team. Really, they welcomed us, with open arms, and really happy to be an executive in residence in leadership and branding to support these new entrepreneurs. So again, really excited to be here. And we have an amazing topic today. Again, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's something that is, key to my heart. Obviously, I am Latina. I am an immigrant and a woman, and very excited to be a professional, again, really helping the next generation of patients, in this case, as a professor, of professionals in business, as new entrepreneurs, really getting started. So again, I'm going to pass the floor to these two amazing women, Nancy Didia and Kendal Whitlock, to introduce themselves. And then we're going to dive into an amazing topic, as I mentioned, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we can leverage technology like AI to help patients really get better access to, again, really have a better footing, and frankly, to help pharma and the industry and strategic partners to empower themselves and build a business case to deliver better outcomes for patients, better medicines that work for everyone, and services. So with that, I would love to, again, feel free to introduce yourselves, and we're going to dive into what do you think is the state of the industry now? And then we can talk about how do we feel we can leverage technology to really be a game changer in this space. So we'll start with Nancy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jenny, and also thank you, Dr. Gershon, and congratulations to you both on this venture. This is terrific. We're thrilled to be here today. I am, I would say, a lifelong advocate around diversity in clinical trials, and my work started way back in 2007, 2008, when we began working with FDA. Kendal and I were on similar teams at that time, and we were both not only personally committed to the healthcare disparities and lack of inclusion, especially in certain disease areas. So we took this on within the company we were with, formerly Boehringer Ingelheim, and worked within industry to address inequities. We've come a long way, but not far enough. We still have so much more to do. And today we hope that with AI, we can introduce some additional insights to help us stem some of the challenges that patients face and sponsors face in both recruiting, retention of patients, and data collection overall. So again, thrilled to be here, and I look forward to the conversation. Kendal, over to you.
So thanks, Nancy and Jenny and Dr. Gershon. This is first an opportunity that I want to thank all of you for extending to me to join you today. So thanks so much for that. I am thrilled with the work that I have the privilege to participate in with Walgreens Clinical Trials business. As Nancy said, we worked together decades ago and had observations in development of at least one or a few of our products where we saw glaring omissions of historically underrepresented race and ethnic groups from our trials. And we worked for one of the leading organizations in the field in pharmaceuticals. So we scratched our heads and said, how did we come to this point in our journey? And it was incumbent upon us and the leaders, we had the support behind us who said, we're going to have to do some things differently. And even back in the day, we had external guests to come and consult with us. And we were given a runway and an opportunity from the leadership, from top down, to explore as many different avenues as we could, not only from experts, but the leveraging of technology over time. And got to a point in our journey then when the use of digital technologies in the context of clinical trials pre-pandemic was something we were beginning to explore. So as our careers and roles and departments may have changed, the commitment to pursuing equitable clinical trials and improving the quality of data from our clinical trials was top of mind, no matter what function we were representing. And so to transition out of a great organization into another great organization, Walgreens Clinical Trials business was founded just a year ago, just over 1 year, in June of 2022. And you can imagine what pharmacies and pharmacists saw at the height of the pandemic, where the communities across the country were looking to the retail pharmacy that was proximate to where they lived for healthcare services. So you may not be aware that Walgreens is transforming itself into being a healthcare company. And so what we understood previously about what the traditional retail pharmacy was to us has changed and is currently undergoing a transformation so that we can build upon what we learned during the pandemic about providing care to patients where they are. So literally meeting people where they are, in that 78% of people are within 5 miles of a Walgreens store. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Kendal. And this is a fantastic segue. As you mentioned, Kendal, the pandemic really was this game-changing event that in a way really brought to light so many issues that were already there. I myself, as a professor working at Columbia, I had the opportunity to volunteer and basically with Presbyterian Hospital here in New York City to actually give the vaccines that were when they were initially available. And I mean, I was honored and ecstatic and fantastic to really help, but it was immediately visible how diverse patients, even local patients around the hospital, did not have access for many reasons, from language barriers to, frankly, not having smartphones or even accessibility to the internet in the same way as other patients. So they did not have access to telemedicine or to the ability to even schedule appointments as quickly as other people did. So it just brings up, again, how can we leverage technology in order to ensure that we are empowering these diverse patients to have access to healthcare, to have access to life-changing trials that really are going to be, I think, something that, again, we need to do very quickly. Only 4% of diverse patients have access today. And the FDA, as we all know, recently has some new policies that all pharma industry has to provide greater access and provide, again, that clear representation in their trials. So I would love to hear from each one of you. What do you think we can do today, leveraging technology, leveraging AI, in order to really have a step change?
So if I could just jump right in. Thank you, Jenny, for that question. One of the things that excites me most is the evidence of what we now understand is coming from clinical trials. So if a traditional clinical trial, only about 30% of that data from RCTs goes into the disease management in the hands of our healthcare professionals, then the rest of what goes into the care that is provided to us and our loved ones is in fact, in part, socially determined. So we know there's a heritability factor that makes up a small percentage for us, but the lion's share of data that goes into managing disease is from social determinants. So first, understanding what the implications of each determinant means for a patient population. We can't take a one-size-fits-all approach. And I know that's cliche to say, but we truly cannot take a one-size-fits-all approach in the assumptions from our own privilege. So we have to be able to scrutinize and examine ourselves with the kind of rigor to understand what may be applicable broadly and generalizable. For example, having computer in your home or having a home in a geography where there is high-speed internet. It is not required that internet service providers make available high-speed internet in all communities. Therefore, if you are privileged enough to have the technology in your home, there's no guarantee that you have the connectivity to do a telemedicine consultation, let alone have the digital literacy to know how to schedule an appointment and conduct that study visit in the example of a decentralized clinical trial. So we really do have to first begin with taking off our personal hats and putting our hats on to learn and actively hear from different types of communities so that their lived experience is brought to bear in our strategic plan. And that's for the long term. So first, elevating awareness about what some of the gaps are. What are some of the areas of uncertainty and unmet need? For example, people that have not had the privilege of being seen by a doctor who does research or who performs or conducts clinical trials as an investigator may not have ever had a conversation with a healthcare provider about a clinical trial. So we can't make the assumption, even with having had the pandemic, that everyone is equally versed in the knowledge of clinical trials. We can't make that assumption just because it's been on the front page of papers and during vaccine development during COVID-19. We can't make the assumption that people have got it, that people understand what clinical trials are. In addition, there are a number of other types of barriers that we know from the literature and the distance to clinical trial sites. If you are a person who works 9 to 5 and you rely on the type of employment that you have that is done during the traditional banking hours, then you need options and flexibility in the way that you access that care. So if it's only open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, even if you are interested and would volunteer to participate, you may not have the option of participating in the location where your study is being conducted. Or it could take you planes, trains, and automobiles to get there, on average 2 hours, we understand. So I could go on, but I won't. I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to weigh in so that we can keep the conversation going. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Kendal. And as usual, very, very well stated and summarized. And I think where AI comes into play here, and I've actually become friends with AI in a way where it can be less of a threat, but more of an asset to the type of work that we do. And we know that our brains as humans can process billions of bits of information in seconds. But AI can do it in a much more efficient way and produce things that would take us probably days to prepare. And what I'm talking about is, there's a lot of pushback that says, well, AI is biased because humans put it together. And of course, there's bias in everything that we do. And the only way we can eradicate that bias is through acknowledging it, recognizing it, and also helping to educate the algorithms to start looking at what we would call fairness metrics to ensure that the selection process doesn't prioritize one group over another, specifically in the areas where we know that disparities exist and where the social determinants of health may preclude participation for whatever those reasons are in general. So one, we can work toward more equitable processes and eliminate some of the human bias through some of that AI algorithm programming. We could also talk about some debiasing techniques that may be present in the data. So we could reweight the data. We can adjust the algorithm's predictions or modify the data to reduce certain biases. And then, it could also help us in audits, very quickly to ensure that we've met the criteria based on disease state or whatever it is that we're looking to evaluate and assess. So I see AI as a partner in this future. And, just to, I think, acknowledge what Kendal was talking about, I'm very excited about the prospects of what a Walgreens can do in terms of access to different communities and the presence of Walgreens in the communities where we need to reach most is a great entree to get the patients that are needed most in our studies that have that disease prevalence that were not, as you said, Jenny, fewer than 4% diverse patients are included in trials. And it wasn't until the late 90s that women were included in clinical studies overall. So I see AI as a great vessel and pathway to augment and enhance the work that we're doing around trial design, trial reporting, and outcome metrics as well.
No, thank you. Thank you both. I really like what you just kind of ended with, Nancy. It's basically using data for good, right? Obviously, everything can go wrong, but we have to go at this with intent and with the right actions. And I really like the idea of trying to leverage data and AI to identify what is the right parameter in order to address the social determinants of health, so that it can tell us how do we need to change the trial in order to really give access to the right community, given their backgrounds, given their cultural differences, language, given their beliefs, and frankly, as Kendal mentioned, given their socioeconomic situation where they might not have accessibility to leave their job in order to go get into a trial. So I think this is, again, it provides a lot of opportunity. And this is, I think, where both pharma entrepreneurs can really, again, work together to create something that is going to benefit everyone. And Nancy, I know that you're also having spent, many, many decades in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but now you have transitioned to also be a leadership coach. So I would love to understand, you mentioned this idea of working with investigators and leveraging training and facilitation. How do you think, coaches like yourself working with investigators and pharma can leverage AI to almost like try to work from within the organization in order to set the right structure and the right mindset changes that need to happen in order to really have a better outcome in the trial?
Great question, Jenny, as usual. I think there are a couple of things that play with investigators, right? And the outcomes from investigators' search or reach for patients is very much dependent of their understanding on the community and the pressure that they have from the sponsor to get the study up and running quickly. And it's not unlike the way that we work with leaders in hiring people for a role. A lot of times we go out and just get the person because the job has been open for a while and we need to close the gap. Here, I think the importance of coaching investigators is to understand and as Kendal so well pointed out, meet the patients where they are. What's getting in the way for them, as opposed to looking at filling the trial as getting your numbers and checking the box. So part of it is integrating the investigator more into the cultural aspects, the human resistance that occurs, the risks associated with it. So almost more of a compassionate recruitment needs to occur, as opposed to a metric. I'm not saying I mean this with all respect, that they have metrics that they have to achieve because the study requires a certain profile. That being said, a lot of times we look in the same places, or the old saying, we fish in the same pond, we're going to catch the same fish. My proposal is that we get the investigators to cast into the ocean and outside of the pond, where there is much more of a variety of patients that could meet that criteria, especially those that have been traditionally excluded or marginalized or disadvantaged in the future. So I see it as helping them to understand the compassion part of care, and helping the patient, building that relationship with the patient, to attract them to the benefits that this could bring, not only to the community that they're representing, but also to their families and the next generation.
I'm going to just chime in for 1 second, just because I want to put up, some of the comments by people who are viewing. And this is an interactive podcast, and we do encourage people to chime in. And I think I want to just highlight what Christoph was saying in terms of appreciation, but also what Tom put in here. And maybe this might be an open question for everyone at large. How difficult is it for AI technology companies to access patient medical records in order to improve screening for suitable patients for trials? I think it's a pretty important question, which goes to some of the companies that we're actually seeing in Techstars, which are focused in on patient trial fit. So perhaps we can address that.
Yeah, I would love to jump right in here as almost a perfect segue for one of the aspects that makes the approach that Walgreens is taking a bit different than others in the retail pharmacy space who are, as you well know, dipping their toe in the waters of clinical trials over the last year, as well as the elimination of another competitor, a friendly competitor, of course, but there are learnings for all of us there. And specifically, not only does Walgreens have 130 million pharmacy patients, but we have strategic partnerships that are driving how we identify who might be eligible for clinical trials. And through one of our technology partners, we have access to 90% of the country's EMR records. And what that enables us to do is to stitch together the pharmacy record to the EMR record and to provide for a sponsor the opportunity to know in a relatively short amount of time who is eligible down to the 5-digit zip code for a given protocol against that sponsor's inclusion and exclusion criteria. That capability, that power to identify the numbers of patients who have pharmacy prescriptions with Walgreens is game-changing in my career trajectory in the approach that is taken to identifying patients for trials. As Nancy said, oftentimes we see that an investigator with a lot of experience in research or a site with a team of investigators in conducting clinical trials will mine their own data to look for their own patients who may be eligible against a sponsor's protocol. That's very time consuming, and we'd really rather that clinician, as Nancy said, respectfully, we'd like that clinician to focus on the patient care and not that this is not care, but that task of identifying eligibility consumes that individual healthcare provider's time. And so where time is limited and providers are burnt out, we'd like to see that they have a complementary option so that in the grand scheme of things where clinical trials may become or clinical research broadly become a care option, we know that, for example, during the pandemic, as people were losing their job, if you lose your job, you lose your health insurance. You lose your health insurance, you lose your access to coverage of care, whether it's a clinical visit or filling of a prescription. If your provider were to educate you about what clinical trials are, maybe that avenue provides you with access to quality care and your prescription to maintain your therapy during a difficult time. And that bridge, if you will, of providing clinical research as a care option is something that at Walgreens we are absolutely championing, because we are not just the retail pharmacy. As I mentioned, we are transforming into becoming a healthcare company. So in addition to being able to use that technology to match patients to trials, on the other side of the house, the Walgreens Health side of the house, we are strategically looking to close care gaps on that side of the business. And so there are a number of strategic partners, including primary care medical service providers through VillageMD. VillageMD acquired Summit Health, which further expands the number of primary care doctors, because we know in this country, a lot of people do not have continuity of care with a primary care doctor. And if people forego what access they do have to care, then the use of technologies in the context of their care or care in general is thwarted because of that disruption. So we are trying to become what is needed based on the gaps and the evidence that is, a reason for why our strategic partners are who they are. One last technology partner and another strategic partner is CareCentrix. We know that getting to a physical location is also very difficult for some people. And so by providing at-home services, as CareCentrix provides at-home care, we learned during the pandemic that even people who were interested in coming couldn't get to a physical location. So if that care can be provided to people in their home, then you have the flexibility of choosing to go to a site, to go to a local retail pharmacy, or to have that care come to you. So just letting you all know of a few of the strategic decisions that have strengthened and enabled this clinical trials business at Walgreens.
Thank you, Kendal. And I really enjoyed what you mentioned, that basically is this idea of both empowering the patient by providing almost like boots on the ground, right? Walgreens is providing the access in my neighborhood. And they're holding the data that while my doctor may change, I still can rely on them as a centralized location of a lot of my information when it comes to medicine, clinical trials, again, all of the things that I need in order to maintain my healthcare. So I really enjoyed how, again, like you said, you're becoming a healthcare company, not just a pharmacy. And one question that comes to mind is, how can we continue to leverage basically that aspect of the strategic organizations, how you guys are evolving and how other companies are evolving with the power of AI to continue to empower patients, so that patients are the ones that also have access to their data, to their information, they can make better decisions. Because part of the challenge with clinical trials is not only what Nancy addressed, the investigator side, but it's also the fear, the biases, frankly, also the lack of language that many of the different diverse patient groups have. And how do we work with them so that they feel more empowered and realize that they have control and they can work together with the industry in order to be better serviced?
So a couple of things, if I could just jump right in. There are service lines that are part of the design of the clinical trials business. The lion's share is patient recruitment. So utilizing that technology that gives us access to the EMR record, patients can consent to have that medical record released is a part of the intake in the start of a clinical trial. But more broadly speaking, we also have a decentralized clinical trial platform partner, which gives the patient the flexibility and convenience of being able to participate in the way that best serves them. If they are working 9 to 5, but they want to participate and are eligible, they may not be able to if the only option is physically going to a location. The third arm of the business is real world evidence. And this is the engine that powers the clinical trials business at Walgreens. One of the opportunities that patients have is to see some of the things that may not be available to them from their EMR or from the composite of all of their health information. So if you think about the fact that we may go to one doctor for one concern, we may go to another doctor for another concern, but can you imagine all of that information being presented to you in a dashboard format so that you can see yourself holistically? It is game changing for the individual and empowering, because now patients have the opportunity to consume education, not only education about the disease area and not transactionally one off. There's a pop-up event and we did some education, rah, but this is a continuum of education where through the retail partner, they are able to look to ways to educate themselves by seeing, oh, did you know that in your demographic, a screening for something is now available to you? They may not be digging in their EMR at the individual provider level, one doctor visit at a time. It may not occur to people to go and think, oh, I'm this old or I have this diagnosis. I wonder what else I could be doing for myself. Many people are not proactive in that sense, unless maybe you have a rare disease or a severe illness. But for chronic illnesses, and although the information is available, we may not be proactive in seeking out what more we can do for ourselves. So the fact that Walgreens has the ability to connect patients in real time very quickly to trial opportunities, to be able to evaluate large data sets to see what more they could be doing for themselves. Maybe there's a screening that they are due for that they had not taken advantage of and now can. That keeps them connected to high quality care and a continuum of care where those outcomes we will begin to see change for patients when they are proactive and empowered in that way. So I'll stop there, but just wanted to highlight those points. Thanks.
Jenny, could I just comment on?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
I'm sure you have a follow-up question, but I wanted to just add what some of us may take for granted as the most obvious part of patient care. A patient doesn't necessarily go to seek out, where's my clinical trial for my condition? So part of this education process, and also, clinical trial hero that we're looking at is a great tool for individuals with certain conditions to look at clinical trials or have an opportunity to get a drug that has not yet been approved to help them with a certain condition or stage of a disease already. So the education part for the patient goes beyond the primary care practitioner, or specialist. It's about broadening, through organizations like Walgreens or through sponsors that are trying to address patients. And it's got to be better than some of those pharmaceutical ads we see saying, just take my drug and here's what the drug does. But in that, imagine how the things would change if we educated patients on how to sign up for a trial for type 2 diabetes, or how to sign up for a trial for breast cancer or colon cancer. We don't do ads like that in our country, in the US. And I think a big part of this, a lot of us came into this, well, I came into this discussion with the inherent understanding that the clinical trial is out there, and we just need to track it and get it done. Our clinical trial is useless if we don't have patients. So we've got to create the bridge for patients to get to our locations, whether it's virtual, digital, decentralized, which is what Walgreens is really taking a leadership role in doing. So I just wanted to add that part on because there's an educational gap on the patient side, both from understanding their condition and demystifying some of the medical terms or aspects. So apps, or this wonderful dashboard that we're talking about, really with our phones, has to be preloaded and backloaded with every EMR that was ever created for you in your lifetime, so that you don't have to do anything except answer questions about the condition that you're in based on the trial protocols. So that's my vision. But
no, thank you. And frankly, we all know that this is a moral issue, that it is a society problem that we need to solve for, but it is a business case, for real money. Money is being left on the table. So one last question, and I'll pose it to all of you, including you, Dr. Gershon, since you're so visionary, we'd love to hear as well. What is your advice for both the industry, established companies like Walgreens, pharma in general, and the young entrepreneurs that are coming into this space? Basically, what is the business case that you want to communicate to them so that they can jump into this opportunity being all in? Dr. Gershon, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I want to thank everyone for an incredibly dynamic and I think informative and poignant conversation today. This is just, I think, the beginning of the next chapter in the integration of science, technology, and in important human values represented in diversity, equity, and inclusion moral compass. I think what we're looking at now is really reframing what's important to be a leader in a new world. What's important to be a leader in a new startup? How does industry begin to reshape its moral compass and integrate its needs with society's needs on a very kind of accelerated basis? I think Jenny pointed out that COVID really has changed the shape and landscape of many people's lives, including industry. And we've seen incredible things like the discovery of the integration of government and industry, and how government and industry coming together can produce remarkable things. I think that this is a harbinger of things to come. I'm super excited about working with tech stars and emerging CEOs from diverse backgrounds, because I think there's an opportunity now for increased shifting in mindset. And that means collaboration, it means partnerships, it means having courage to be transparent in your business plans, both on the entrepreneurship and founder side and on the industry side. So I think one of the things that I'm going to really advocate for, and do see in a sense where the puck is going, as Wayne Gretzky has said, is this notion that we can begin to develop a dialogue between industry leaders and entrepreneur CEO founders, where they can sit at the same table and talk about the problems that industry has in providing solutions for patients and improving the healthcare system. That dialogue requires ambassadors, like you, Kendal, like you, Nancy, and like you, Jenny. So I look at the three of you as kind of the tip of the spear in this new era of, being ambassadors to be able to solve problems means patience, leadership, instilling resilience, understanding that CEOs need to adapt and industry needs to adapt. So that's how I look at really the next decade, which is a call to arms to collaborate and be courageous and be leaders.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Gershon. Kendal, Nancy?
Sure, I'll jump right in. And there's so much on the table. The discussion has been so rich, but I think that one of the pieces of advice I would give to these tech stars and these entrepreneurs is candidly, we in industry have seen the challenges that we've discussed for a very long time. Underrepresentation of racial and ethnic groups is not new. Therefore, how we are applying what we understand to be the challenges, Jenny pointed to this in her comments, but my thought is, if we continue to do the trials the same way, starting with the protocol in our hand and designing a recruitment campaign that may include only digital tools, we will capture a segment of the patient population. But imagine for the industry if you could go upstream with your innovation and capture the attention continuously of the eligible population, who then could be recruited for clinical trials. We might see fewer numbers needed at the top of that funnel. We might see greater numbers staying in trials, retained, because there has been a solution that has been validated as a reliable or a valid approach to maintaining continuity with people. And it's not knowledge per se alone. It's got to be user design. It's got to be user friendly. It's got to be something that people, that's complementary to the lives that people are living. So that means that as tech startups, you've got to think about how well you serve the needs that exist, which means you can't be oblivious to those communities and their needs. Actively listening, engaging with communities who are not necessarily the people sitting around our dining room tables. They're not necessarily represented in our friendship circles or in our networks on social media. That's not the cohort of people where health disparities may exist. So if we as technology innovators don't get into the communities where real problems are, then we will miss the mark on solving the needs of those communities. And we have to do it in partnership with those communities, not for those communities, because those communities have the ability to speak for themselves. I'll stop there.
Well said, Kendal and Dr. Gershon. I echo everything that both of you said, spot on. Let me just add one other piece that typically when we talk about diversity in clinical trials, we look at it in a binary and racial, ethnic perspective. And I would challenge you to look much more broadly with the onset of non-binary patients and allowing that flexibility for patients to identify other than a binary way, and to listen to the voice of the patient. Embrace, and here I'm going into that coaching mindset, Jenny, that servant leader approach where the patient is who you follow, as opposed to the patient following you. The voice of the patient is who you are the servant leader to, and you work for the patient. And the patient's voice must have that, they must have that sense of belonging, that they feel they're in the right trial, and that they're contributing not only to their own wellness, but to the wellness of the future and the communities that they represent. So I think we have a ways to go, because what got us here won't get us to where we need to go. But both Dr. Gershon and Kendal have laid out the stepping stones for a future that is not only promising, but encouraging and hopeful for patients. And that's what this is about, improving the quality of life, not only for the patients, but their care partners and their loved ones.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Nancy and Kendal. And thank you, Dr. Gershon, for welcoming me as the moderator. Hope to be back. Again, really enjoyed the conversation. Such a rich topic and so much, I think, that we are going to see in the future coming from pharma, from industry, from government, and from entrepreneurs like the folks in Techstars, in terms of really reinventing this space. So it's an exciting time. So thank you, Dr. Gershon. I'll pass it along to you.
Thank you, everyone. I also want to really shout out a big thank you to the audience and for people who have put amazing comments into the chat. Here's just an example of one of them. It's very important to recognize, I think, that when we pull together, we can do incredible things. And I would like to formally invite both Kendal and Nancy. Please come to Techstars at your convenience to talk to some of these incredible CEO entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. They would gain so much from a half an hour or an hour of your time. It will be a real pleasure to be able to introduce you as leaders in this important community to the CEOs. They are looking to find leaders. They are looking to find people who are role models. And the three of you really are just outstanding in the work that you've all done. And success, from my experience, means having people that support your vision and can open up channels for you to expand your interesting ideas and take those ideas into some action plan. Without the network that we're bringing in terms of the Endeavor ecosystem, there are less opportunities. And so part of the structure that we're looking to put in front of these CEOs is the ability to access great leaders and great companies like Walgreens and Boehringer Ingelheim. And now, Nancy, you have a standalone consulting service. So I'm sure you will be flooded with many, many CEOs because of the incredible experience that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Gershon.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone who's dialed in. I asked my panelists to hang on for just a moment while I sign everybody off. And please tune in next Tuesday. We have another fantastic webinar. Looking forward, we're really excited about a continuation of this theme, which is a high-level theme of leadership, moral compass, and values, with really some outstanding comments from the president of Rock Health, who will be joining us in a few weeks. Please stay tuned for more announcements, and I encourage everyone to follow us on Endeavor Venture Funds in our LinkedIn platform, where we'll update things in terms of news and events. Until next Tuesday, thank you all, and thank you, panelists. I'm going to say so long and good afternoon.
Okay.